Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode, episode 22 of Innovative EdTech. It is lovely to see you here with us tonight. If you're joining us live on YouTube or Facebook, if you're catching up later on, it is wonderful to also have you here. So thank you for joining us for episode 22. All right, tonight, smart classrooms of tomorrow, building future-ready skills today. So tonight we're going to go through and explore some of those reasons behind why we actually need to be looking at and embedding different practices into our classroom environments in order to prepare our students for the future. I've mentioned many times here that the future that our young people are going to be going into is vastly different to the futures that you and I have grown up with and that we are now living and working in. So we need to make sure that the young people that we are teaching have those capabilities and capacities to go out there and be active and informed citizens. So we've got another fantastic episode for you this evening. And I mentioned in my last episode in February that I'm going to try so hard this year to get it under that hour mark. And I think we're going to be able to do that again tonight. So let's dive into episode 22 of Innovative EdTech, Smart Classrooms for Tomorrow, Building Future-Ready Skills Today. Okay, if you have not met me before, my name is Tristan Herron, and I am the creator and founder of Evolve EdTech. So I'm the person behind the scenes. I'm the person here who's presenting to you, and I'm the person who is really passionate about educational technology and sharing my love and knowledge and wisdom about this with you so that you can go out and you can incorporate this into your own teaching and learning and your own classrooms to support your students. So Evolve EdTech has been around since 2020. We did actually start out under a different name. We started pre-COVID. So believe it or not, the timing was just outstandingly amazing when we launched because we were able to then dive in and I was able to help my colleagues and lots of other people during that particularly messy period of our lives. So we have been around since 2020 and we're still going and we're still here to support you. So I am a fully qualified K-12 teacher here in Australia, which means I can teach from kindergarten, which is the very beginning of school, all the way up to year 12, which is the end of high school. So I actually can teach across the entire spectrum here that we have in Australia, which is absolutely amazing. I have been teaching for just over 15 years now. I think I'm in my 16th year of teaching right now. So I have been around the block. I have seen a lot. I have done a lot. So when I'm talking to you, I'm definitely telling you the truth and I know what I'm talking about and I know what I'm doing. My love of EdTech actually, it kind of was, founded, I suppose I could say, during my very first high school teaching job in 2012. And we had a particular program here in Australia at the time where we were providing laptops and devices to all of our students in years 9. And I was so lucky to be at a wonderfully small school where I was able to use EdTech with my students, and that's where I was introduced to Moodle. So if you're an original OGer Moodle, I loved it back then. I can't imagine what it's like now. I don't use Moodle anymore because of my particular context, but it is what really opened me up to this world of educational technology and what you can do with it in the classroom. So I was so privileged and so proud to be part of this amazing team. And I met some wonderful people who I still contact now to, talk about technology. So that is where my love actually, it grew from that moment. And we are so lucky here at Evolve EdTech that in 2025, we were actually nominated for a global award as part of the Corporate Vision Education and Training Awards. And we were successful in obtaining the Leading Teacher EdTech Training Initiative 2025. So that award was amazing. I can't believe that we won that, but it was such a nice experience to be recognized for what we do here at Evolve EdTech. Sometimes it feels like a hard slog because I am obviously a full-time teacher as well, but what we're doing is to support you. So thank you so much for joining us. If you are brand new, it's lovely to have you here. If you are an old hat, thank you so much for coming back. I really do appreciate that. Okay, so let's dive into this episode. What are we going to explore over the next just under an hour? So tonight, we're going to go in and dive in and have a look at something that is so important to all of us. Tonight's not a demo episode. Tonight's a little bit just of a lecture type episode where I'm going to share some ideas with you just to get you thinking, to get those thought processes happening so that you can actually start to identify what you could do to make sure that your young people are prepared for their future. So in this episode, we are going to jump in and identify why it is essential to develop those future-ready skills in the classroom. Why do we need to be thinking about these right now, today, in what are we at? March 2026. So why do we need to develop these? Why it's essential, and what's the purpose behind that? We're going to then introduce you to the 3 clusters of a framework that we have developed here at Evolve EdTech. And we're going to have a look at these 3 clusters and why these are so important to embed into our classrooms to develop those future-ready skills. Then we're going to dive into those 3 clusters, and we're going to share 6 ideas across those 3 clusters, 2 ideas per cluster, so that you can start to have a look at how you can incorporate these into your teaching and learning programs so that our young people have those skills that they will need, those capacities, capabilities, those competencies, so that they can go out there into a brand new world and be highly successful, active, and informed citizens. And then to wrap up the episode, just like normal, we're just going to share some different ways that you can stay connected with us, some other learning opportunities that we also offer here at Evolve EdTech, so that you can continue to develop your knowledge and competence with educational technology. Anyway, let's dive into episode 22 of Innovative EdTech. All right, so what I want to do now is I just want to set the scene for this episode. So we know that the world that our students, the world, the young people that we have in our classrooms today, their world is going to be changing. It is going to be different. It is going to be highly technological. There is going to be so much more AI embedded. The world our students are entering is changing, and it is changing every second of every day. So I just want to set that scene to start with. I want you to be thinking about the future and how every day, every moment, every hour, everything, things are changing, all right? It's changing so rapidly that sometimes it feels like it's hard to keep up. And this is why we need to keep this particular idea up here in our brain holes so that we are ready to prepare our students for a fantastic future. So let's dive in and break this down a little bit more, because it's really important to understand why and what's happening and what we need to consider to ensure that our students are prepared for that world that they are going to be entering when they leave the formal education schooling settings and they move off into doing whatever they're going to do. So the world our students are entering is changing faster than ever before. We know that. We see that every day. We see some kind of new technology coming out. We see AI advancing. We see that changing. So we know as educators and humans that technology is transforming how we live, learn, and work. All right. You won't go anywhere. Right here, I have my mobile phone. I am delivering to you a webinar live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. I have my tablets. I have my camera. I have my microphone. I have all of these different technological items. We have those, but we also know that we have access to technology in a myriad of other different ways. When you go to the supermarket, when you go to the hardware shop, when you even go to McDonald's, technology is being used in every component of our lives now. It is very difficult to escape that technology and, start to explore and start to recognize that it is transforming our lives. Sometimes there are consequences to this, but most of the time, this technological transformation is there for a purpose, and it's there to make our lives easier. We also know that artificial intelligence and automation are reshaping industries and careers. So we know that some of those jobs that we might have had when we were younger are starting to change or disappear because of AI and automation and all of these new technologies that are being developed and embedded. So it is reshaping that, employment landscape that our young people are going to be moving into. We also know that many of the jobs that our students are going to have in the future probably don't even exist yet. So even though we know that AI and automation is reshaping industries and careers, those jobs that we are hopefully losing from that technological advancement are going to be replaced with brand new jobs, brand new industries, brand new careers and roles that we haven't even thought of yet. All right. We haven't even identified what these are going to be, how these are going to be part of our world. But we know that those jobs that our young people are going to access in the future are going to be different to the jobs that you and I had as teenagers, adults, and now as we might be a little bit more mature. We also know that information is now instantly accessible. So we know that, all right? But we need to make sure that our students, the young peoples that we teach in our classes, we need to make sure that they know how to evaluate and use that particular information effectively. And it was really interesting that I was talking to my year 11 English studies class recently about just the changes in the world and how technology and how information is now so readily accessible. And I was talking about when I was in, year 9 and year 10 and year 11, and we had, we didn't have mobile phones that were internet enabled. We had to pay 25 cents for 150 characters on our mobile phones. It was all prepaid. We had a computer lab with, the big IBM type computers with the giant monitors. So I was trying to get my students to really understand the differences between 20 21 years ago when I was in high school to today, and how the access of information has changed. We also know that in the future, success will rely on skills such as critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and adaptability. So a lot of these skills we always talk about, you always hear people within the teaching profession, within whatever sphere that you might be involved with, these particular skills are skills that are transferable, that we are always going to need. We're always going to need to be able to think critically. We're always going to need to be able to collaborate. Creativity is something that is going to make the world fantastic, because that creativity and what you can do and what you can create is what makes the world so interesting and dynamic. And we know that adaptability is going to be so important as our students move into their future, because we don't know what the future is going to look like. That's why it's called the future. But we know that if our students are going to be able to be successful, be informed citizens who are active, they are going to need to be able to adapt to some of those changes, especially if they're quite rapid and, forced and unexpected in a way. So from this, it is so important that schools and educators like you and I move beyond this basic understanding of simply delivering knowledge. Knowledge is important, yes, but we can also gain knowledge so much more easily and readily today, thanks to AI, thanks to the internet, thanks to all of that technology. So we can jump on and we can learn something really quickly, all right? So we know that. But what we need to do, what we need to focus on, is we need to help our students develop the skills that they will need to thrive in a vastly different, ever-changing world. All right. We need to make sure that these skills are embedded, that they are so clear and firm that they basically roll off the tongue when, every time our young people go out into the world and do something, they know how these skills have relevance and how these skills are going to connect to their future. So we need to move beyond knowledge. We're not saying that knowledge is not important, but we need to move beyond just focusing on delivering content to now developing skills. Okay, so what is this idea of future ready skills? What are they, and why is it important that you and I are considering these every single day in our classrooms? So future ready skills are those I can't even speak tonight. Future ready skills are the capabilities that our students will need to be able to navigate technology, solve problems, work with others, and adapt to change. So these skills, and the 4 skills that I'm about to bring up, are so essential for our young people to make sure that they are ready for their future. So the skills that our young people will need include that ability to learn continuously. Learning never stops. I learn every single day. There is something that I pick up. There is something that I have a discussion with a colleague. There is something that I learn from some of my wonderful mentors and some of the wonderful people I follow on Facebook and Instagram. Learning is continuous, and our students need to understand that learning doesn't stop the minute that you leave that school gate. All right, you graduate, you finish, you do whatever you're doing. Learning is continuous. All right, our students also need to understand that we do need to think critically. All right, we do need to challenge, we do need to reflect, we do need to be thought provoking when it comes to every single thing that we're doing. All right, just because somebody says that this is the way we've done it for years and years and years doesn't mean that it's necessarily the most effective or best way to actually do something. So being able to think critically is going to be so highly valued and so important for our young people as they move into their future. We also need to prepare our students to work collaboratively. That's just a given. Collaboratively and being able to work collaboratively. I just said that twice. Do not know. It's so important. All right. So that collaboration is going to be something that we really need to embed into our students. I see it every day, and I've been at my school for quite a while now. I have seen this idea of collaboration change over time. In my nearly 16 years of teaching, I've seen collaboration change. And I think today, in 2026, collaboration is difficult. And especially in my particular context at my school, some of our students don't have the skills to work collaboratively. So, finding the ways to develop those collaboration skills is something that's going to be so important. So even if it's just a whole class collaboration, doing something using a Google Doc could be a great way to start to develop these and then eventually move down into some smaller groups, some pairs, etc. So preparing our students to work collaboratively is so important to make sure that they are ready for their futures. And our final reason why we need to prepare our students is because we need to prepare our students to use technology responsibly. Okay, I see this all the time. I see my students know how to use mobile phones. All right, I see them being able to do this. But then again, I also see them using AI incorrectly. I see them not being able to do simple practices on a computer or a keyboard, like when sending an email, popping in a salutation or even just a subject line, things like that. So being able to use this technology responsibly is something that we really need to embed into our students. So we're here as educators, and I'm very big on using AI and incorporating that. But I don't just use AI and chuck it out there. I need to proofread it. I need to check it. I need to make sure that it's accurate. I understand it. And you know what? I change things all the time because I am using that AI responsibly. So we really need to make sure that our students have this, they understand this, so that they are going to go out there, they're going to use it responsibly, ethically, and they're going to use it appropriately. So this is something that we have been working on here at Evolve EdTech, and we are so proud to present this to you tonight. This is just the initial version. This is version number 1, but this is a really cool way of us sharing this idea about preparing our students for the future, because we've always talked about this here at Evolve EdTech. It's about preparing our young people for the future. All right. So tonight we are here to introduce you to the Future Ready Skills Framework. So we put together this little framework. It's really simple. We're going to go through and explain the different clusters that we have incorporated into this. We've really tried to make this as simple and accessible as possible, because we want this to be a tool that you can go and pull from when it comes to preparing and making sure that these skills are being embedded into your classroom. So future-ready classrooms focus on developing the skills students need to thrive in a rapidly changing world. We need to make sure that these skills are embedded so that our young people have the best chance of being successful in a world that we can't really envision just yet in March 2026. So, as I mentioned, we have popped together this framework, the Future Ready Skills Framework, to provide you with a little bit of a scaffold, a little bit of a structure to help you get started here. So we have divided these ideas into 3 key clusters, is what we have named them. So these clusters look at how students think, how we use technology, and also how we work with others. So let's go and have a look at our particular clusters. Cluster number 1 is thinking skills. So cluster number 1 is just really focusing on how our students analyze, question, and solve problems, because we know that when we are presented with a problem, we really need to have a look at it. We need to dissect it. We might question the validity or the purpose or the reason. And we use these to help us solve a problem that we might have been presented with. So our first cluster really focuses on this idea of thinking skills. Cluster number 2 is exploring those digital skills, how our students navigate and use technology effectively. Because we know that just because I'm sitting here right now with you delivering this workshop live on YouTube and live on Facebook, that, in 10 years' time, or even let's say 5 years' time, or let's even go less than that, let's go 12 months' time, technology is going to be different. Will I be doing this in 12 months' time? I don't know. It's so different. It's rapidly evolving, but we need to make sure that our students are able to navigate those digital skills, that digital world, using technology effectively, appropriately, ethically, etc. And our final cluster looks at those human skills. So even though we're looking at those thinking skills and those digital skills, we can't eliminate the human skills that are going to be involved with preparing our students for that future. So that is why we have included this in the Future Ready Skills Framework. Human skills, human capabilities, human capacities are always going to be there, all right? How these are used or incorporated is obviously going to change over time, but we are still going to need to be humans. We are still going to need to communicate. We are still going to need to collaborate. We are still going to need to adapt. And that is why this particular cluster focuses on that idea about how students communicate, how they collaborate, and how they adapt. How are they going to overcome those challenges that they are faced through the digital changes in the world? How are they going to do that so that they can continue to be successful in the world? So we're going to go and explore these 3 clusters tonight in episode 22. We're going to break them down, give you a little bit more detail as to what each of these 3 clusters is going to explore. And then for each cluster, we're actually going to share 2 different ways that we could focus on incorporating and embedding this cluster into our classrooms, because I don't want to overwhelm you too much in this episode. This is just an introduction to the Future Ready Skills Framework. So we wanted to keep it nice and simple tonight, but we really want to get you thinking, right? That is the big takeaway from tonight's episode, is to get you thinking about how we can start to incorporate and embed these into our current classrooms, our teaching and learning programs, so that we are preparing our young people for their future. So when these 3 skill areas, these 3 clusters work together, they will help our students develop the confidence, knowledge, and adaptability needed to succeed in the future. So even though we might teach these 3 clusters in isolation, all right, when we put them all together, they are actually going to work together as one, essentially, and they're going to ensure that our young people have that confidence, have the knowledge and adaptability that they are going to need to be successful in their future. Because just like you and I'm sitting here talking about the future. Our young people that we're teaching today in our classrooms, they're going to go into a future that's different to our world now. They're going to be talking about their future, which again is going to be so different. So we need to make sure that they have those skills, that they have those capacities, that they have those competencies ready to go out there and absolutely smash the future and be successful. So let's dive into our very first cluster as part of the Future Ready Skills Framework. Cluster 1, as I mentioned, focuses on this idea of thinking skills. Thinking is so important, and being able to dive in there and problem solve and be able to find solutions and be creative is something that we need to do now in 2026. We're going to need to do it in 2036, 10 years' time. We are always going to need to have these. So this is why it is so pivotal that we are incorporating this into our classrooms and our teaching spaces today. So thinking skills are those skills that will help our young people analyze, evaluate, and generate ideas so that they can solve complex problems and think independently. All right. So the couple of things here. All right. So being able to analyze, evaluate, and generate those ideas. All right. Being able to have a look at the problems, having a look at the scenarios, having a look at what we are faced with, and being able to solve those problems, but also being able to think independently, being able to identify information, being able to go out there into the world and be able to be someone that is going to be able to do something productive, that's going to be beneficial for maybe themselves, maybe a group, maybe a society, something as a whole. So let's dive into having a look at our very first example for cluster 1, thinking skills. All right, the very first idea here that we have is critical thinking. All right, so obviously we know that cluster 1 is focused on this idea. And if we go back here, it's focused on that idea of thinking skills. So critical thinking is probably the natural place to kickstart this particular framework. So we know that critical thinking involves analyzing information, questioning assumptions, and evaluating evidence to make informed decisions. So we know that, all right? We are educators. We do this for a living. So it's something that is natural to us. But for some of our students, looking at their backgrounds and where they've come from, critical thinking might not just roll off the tongue for them. So it's so important that you and I are incorporating this into our classrooms so that our young people can make those informed decisions, so that they can question assumptions, so that they can evaluate evidence, so that they can make informed decisions that are going to be beneficial. So let's have a look at some practical classroom strategies that we could utilize today to incorporate these ideas of critical thinking into our classrooms. Okay, number 1 here is inquiry-based learning and debates. Again, you and I probably know this because we are highly educated teachers and other educators. So we know this, that inquiry-based learning is so pivotal. Being able to get our students, provide them with a problem, getting our students to dive in and solve it and have a look. It's so cool checking out the different ways that our students approach this. So we know that inquiry-based learning process is so valuable in developing those critical thinking skills. Debates are another fantastic way to develop that critical thinking. Having a discussion with somebody else and then identifying what they're suggesting and then being able to provide a counter argument or being able to take away something that you didn't think of yourself at the end of that debate is so pivotal in developing those critical thinking skills. So there straight away are 2 very simple ways that we can incorporate and embed critical thinking activities into our classrooms. All right, another way is that we might get our students to compare multiple sources on a topic. Now, this is so simple in today's age. We've got AI, we've got so much information out there on the interwebs that we can go and grab 2 different sources. We might grab 2 different articles from a newspaper looking at the same event, and we can compare those particular articles, having a look at what they focus on, what they're doing, the sources of information, what ideas and perspectives that they are presenting to us. So simple, and we can use that. We can incorporate technology into that one. We could be using something like a superstructures activity, which is a brand new resource that I've recently discovered. So there's so many ways that we can do this. We could be using Padlet. We could be using Google Docs, something like that. But really getting our students to explore that idea of comparing multiple sources on a topic is really going to develop those critical thinking skills that our students are going to need for their future. Okay, our next idea is encouraging questioning using visible thinking routines. So obviously, if you don't know what the visible thinking routines are, they are a whole series of amazing thinking and learning routines from the Harvard Project Zero. So if you head over to Google and you check that out, you'll find a lot of information about that. Also, little tip here, if you do head over to our website, we do have some free PDF versions and some templates of some of the visible thinking routines if you'd like to use those and incorporate those into your classrooms. But these thinking routines are really great ways to get your students to think about some of those different areas that they're looking at. I can tell you from my own personal perspective right here today, I was actually looking at a resource that I purchased from my wonderful friends at a business here in Australia called Into English. I purchased one of their resources. I have been a big fan of Into English. I have known the owners of Into English for a little while now. I've gone to many professional learning sessions with them, so I highly value and appreciate what they do. And they produce resources that are very heavily based on the visible thinking routines. And today I was putting together a resource, and I was using their materials, and I was actually really impressed with the visible thinking routines that they incorporated into some of those particular activities that they included. So these visible thinking routines are a really great way to break down this, analysis of information, to really help our students grasp and make those informed decisions. So check out them because they are really useful. And our final example on how we can incorporate critical thinking into our classrooms is having a look at analyzing media, advertisements, even AI outputs for bias. So having a look at how bias is incorporated and used in everyday language, in graphics, in media, in advertisements, and really analyzing this so that your students are starting to develop the abilities to go, no, that particular article there, that particular news segment, that particular advertisement is clearly biased towards this because I can see this. So getting our students to develop the ability to go and analyze that media, those advertisements, those AI outputs for bias is going to make sure that they can jump out there into the world. They can analyze that information. They can question assumptions. They can evaluate that evidence so that they can make informed decisions. So why does this particular skill matter? So in a world that today is flooded with information, all right, here I am presenting more information to you right now. Our students need the ability to evaluate claims, identify misinformation, and make thoughtful decisions. So we really need to be embedding this into our classrooms today so that when our students go out into that big, bold world that is going to be so different to the world that you and I grew up in, they are going to know how to evaluate a claim that a product might be making. They're going to be able to identify misinformation. And we know the world at the moment is full of misinformation. And they're going to be able to identify and make thoughtful decisions based on the evidence that they are provided with the various sources that they are accessing. So incorporating critical thinking into your classroom is going to be so important to make sure that our young people are able to go out into the world, a world that's going to be so much more heavily influenced with information and the accessibility of the information, and they're going to be able to make thoughtful decisions. All right, let's move on to our second example on how we can incorporate thinking skills into our classroom. And this one is creativity and innovation, which is something that I think is going to be so important. It's important today, and it's going to continue to be important moving forward. So we know that creativity involves generating original ideas, exploring new possibilities, and thinking beyond traditional approaches. So as our students move into a world where technology is going to be so much more heavily embedded into what they're doing each and every day, we need original ideas. We need our students to suggest something, to think of something, to go out there and actually find new ways of doing something that we might have been doing for the same way for a long time. So we need our students to explore those possibilities. We need to get them to think beyond those traditional approaches. And I suppose that also applies to technology in the classroom, thinking beyond just using that Word document or Google Docs. What else can we embed and include in our classrooms to really make sure that we are being creative, but we are also being innovative as educators? So let's have a look at some practical classroom strategies that we could incorporate. And again, remember, these are just a couple of ideas tonight because I don't want to overwhelm you too much on how we can incorporate critical thinking into our classrooms. All right, the very first one here, I absolutely love this idea, and it is allowing our students to present learning in different formats, such as video, podcast, comics, or infographics. I loved this idea, and when I was having a look and creating this, and I thought about this, I actually thought back to my own experience where I know in my particular context, a lot of our assessments that we use on our students are written. They involve paragraphs, they involve written assessments. I have a big concern and problem with this because I don't think that this is setting our young people up for success. Now, I will have colleagues who will say, we need to do this because they are going to sit a written exam at the end of year 12. Okay, sure. But why does every single one of the assessments that we use in my particular setting, why do they all need to be written? Why can't we have something like a podcast? Why can't we get our students to create a comic? And then if we want that written component, we might have some kind of reflection that requires our students to complete and write some paragraphs. Infographics, how cool is that? Creating a wonderful infographic exploring something related to a topic that you're doing. I can see that in science, in history, I can see that in geography, I can see that in maths, I can see that in a myriad of different ways. But having a look at how we can get our students to present their learning is going to make sure that they are generating those ideas, that they're exploring those possibilities, but we're also thinking beyond those traditional approaches that we might have been incorporating and embedding for a very long time. Okay, another example here is using tools like Book Creator, Canva, Adobe Express. There are so many wonderful tools out there. You do know that I am a Canva fan. We're obviously using Canva tonight. I've got my Year 12 English Studies class right now. They are completing an assessment task and they are going to use Canva for that. All right, so Canva is such a powerful tool. Book Creator, we've talked about Book Creator here at Evolve EdTech before. There is so much that you can do with that as well. But see how we can be starting to provide our students with the opportunity to be creative, but also we can be innovative by using some of these tools and embedding these into our classrooms. We don't have to embed them for every single thing that we're doing, but we should be incorporating them into our classrooms in some capacity at some stage to develop those skills, to develop that creativity and innovation. Okay, our next example here is to introduce design thinking challenges or problem solving tasks. All right, again, so maybe if you're teaching something with technology, you've got food tech, you're doing, graphic design, visual design, art, anything like that, getting our students to have some kind of design thinking challenge. I do know a couple of years ago, I was helping a young student in year 10, I think she was, doing a geography assessment. And part of that was to create a brand new piece of technology that could be used to, support a particular kind of environment. And I remember this particular student, she put together a drone and, she labeled what the drone did and how it would be able to help this particular environment that she was exploring. But that kind of design thinking challenge, that problem solving task is such a really amazing, innovative way to develop that creativity, to get our students to explore those different ideas, to think beyond the traditional, but also to do it in a way that is going to be innovative and engaging and is going to really set them up for a fantastically positive future. And the final example here is encouraging experimentation and iteration. So just because, this very first sample is, what I thought was going to be it, doesn't mean that that has to be the final version. So I mentioned earlier in this episode that the framework that we're talking about tonight, this is version 1. All right, this might change. This is something that is going to continue to evolve, but this is just something that we have created that we are experimenting with to help you with embedding these skills in your classroom. So encouraging that experimentation, encouraging that iteration, getting our students to identify that we can continuously make changes and we can continually improve so that what we thought the problem that we were originally trying to solve might be, it might be completely different. We might have a completely different focus, or, what we started with when it came to our planning and ideas is completely different in the end. So another 4 very simple ways that we can actually support critical thinking in the classroom through creativity and innovation. So why does this skill matter? We know that automation, it's coming, it's here. It's going to replace many of those routine tasks and jobs that we have been doing for a long time. All right, it's just going to happen. We can't stop it. It is coming. However, if we have creative thinkers who can innovate and develop new ideas these young people are going to be people that are going to be highly valued in the future workforce. So being able to find a problem and being able to develop a solution that is going to be effective and efficient and creative, all of these skills are going to be so important for our young people. So if we have students who are able to do this, they are going to be the people that are going to be highly successful in a future workforce. Beautiful. There's our first cluster. Cluster number 1, critical thinking. All right, let's dive into cluster number 2, which is having a look at digital skills. All right, so now we're moving away from that thinking element, from being creative and innovative, to really focusing on those digital skills that our young people are going to need in the future. So digital skills focus on understanding and using technology effectively, responsibly, and intelligently. All right. So yes, your students might say, hey, I know how to use a phone. Do you really? Do you really know how to use a phone? Do you really know how to use AI? Do you really know how to prompt properly? That is why that is why you and I had a bit of a tongue twister there. That is why you and I need to make sure that our students develop these skills so that they can understand and use technology effectively, responsibly, and intelligently in their future. Okay, let's have a look at idea number 3. All right, and that is AI literacy. We live in a world now where AI is so heavily embedded into our daily practices already that we really need to make sure that this is a digital skill that we really hone in on and we really embed into the brains and minds and everyday thinking of our students. So AI literacy is the ability to understand, use, and critically evaluate artificial intelligence tools and technologies. Okay, so being able to have a look at any type of AI tool that we might be using, whether that's ChatGPT, whether that's some kind of other tool, whether we're looking at AI technology that's being used in the supermarket or at the hardware shop, we need to make sure that we understand what this is, we can use it, we can critically evaluate it, and we can actually, have a sound AI literacy understanding for our future. So, and I've made a little bit of a boo-boo here because look at that. Sometimes even I make a boo-boo, but look at this. I can fix this now because that should say digital skills. Look at that. Don't you love that? It's going to be wrong on the next slide as well. Don't tell anybody. Okay, so let's dive into practical classroom strategy to support digital skills number 1. Okay, so demonstrating how AI tools can support brainstorming or drafting. This is so important and it's so simple now to really demonstrate that ethical and appropriate use of AI tools to help our students brainstorm and to draft and to get feedback to help them compose a response or can create a piece of text or do something themselves. It is so important in today's age. All right, another classroom strategy here is to explore prompt writing and how to refine those prompts for better results. So you could go in there, you could have a very simple prompt with your students, pop that into ChatGPT or whatever you're using, Gemini, whatever you'd like to use, pop that prompt in there, and then slowly teach your students how when we refine our prompts, we actually get better results. We actually get more focused, more specific information that is going to provide us with the information that we need and we're looking for, right? That is something that is so important for you and I as well as educators. Okay, it's really also important that we analyze AI-generated content to identify those strengths and inaccuracies. So having a look at something that is AI created, having a look for some of those anomalies, having a look for some of those, mutilations with body parts and things like that, and being able to identify what these are. So that analysis of AI-generated content is so valuable and so important today as well. And finally, the last classroom strategy here is to discuss those ethical considerations such as bias and responsible use. So we always know that when we're using AI, there is the chance of bias being presented to us. There is the chance for something to be presented inaccurately, all right? But it's also really important for us as educators to model the responsible use of AI and to show our students what we can do to evaluate these information, this information, these resources, this output, so that we can consider those ethical considerations. I am absolutely 100% in support of using AI as an educator. It is a tool, it is an assistant, it is not there to replace you. It is there to assist you, all right? So do not jump into Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever you're using, and just use it without actually proofreading and checking it, because there's no ethics in that. So we also need to demonstrate this. We need to discuss those ethical considerations. We need to embed this AI literacy into our students each and every day. So why does this particular skill matter? So we know that AI is rapidly becoming a standard workplace tool. It is so embedded in my life. It's my colleagues' world. We use it each and every day. But teaching students how to use it responsibly prepares them for a future. It prepares them for future industries, but also it develops those critical thinking skills. All right, so we talked about that in cluster 1 with our critical thinking, but it's also going to make sure that when they're using and incorporating AI into their own world, into their own jobs and their own roles, that they are going to be doing that in a way that they are considering it critically, that they are being ethical, that they are being appropriate. Okay, let's dive into idea number 4 for our second section here, which is obviously our digital skills. And that's digital literacy, which I think is also a pretty obvious given in today's day and age. So digital literacy refers to the ability to confidently use digital tools, platforms, and technologies to find, create, evaluate, and share information. We think in today's day and age, this is something that should just come naturally. We know that basically when Bub is out of mum, they're basically on a tablet, an iPad, they're on a phone, they're on some kind of device straight away. All right. Now, obviously, that is a big generalization. That is not true. That is not how it happens. So if that's what you think happens, go and talk to somebody else. Okay. But we know that, we think that our students should be able to use these tools and platforms and technologies competently. But you know what? From my experience and my nearly 16 years of teaching, I can tell you that our students can't. Yes, we do have some students who are very competent in using technology, perfectly well. But then we have some students who really don't know those basics. So what are some classroom strategies? And again, I completely haven't changed my my graphic here, my slideshow, because this should say I've forgotten here. It's been a long day. Anyway, let's keep going. Some practical skills to support this digital skill, some practical strategies. Okay, so obviously teaching our students how to evaluate websites and identify reliable sources. Again, something that we really need to be doing and something that you and I can incorporate quite easily into our day-to-day practices. Okay, why is this website much better than this website? Okay, things like that. Students look at me as well. I say to my students all the time, Wikipedia is a place to start. And the students go, no, you can't use Wikipedia. Probably not like that, but they go, huh? Wikipedia is a great way to start researching some information just to get that general overview, right? So if you want to know why something happened in the world, Wikipedia is probably going to be a place where you can go and you can have a look there. Then obviously from that, you have a teaching moment there where you can say, okay, now let's go and find another source and see if the information in that Wikipedia page is actually accurate. So we can, really get our students to go from that very initial understanding of something that they might be exploring to honing in on different websites and different sources to see how reliable that information actually was. So teaching our students how to evaluate websites and identify reliable sources is so important in developing that digital literacy. Okay, the next one here is using tools like Google Docs, Slides, or Canva to create digital artifacts. So again, you don't need to be doing this every single day, all right? Using Google Docs, a collaborative project, all right, using Google Slides to do something is a really great way to start to develop the use of those digital tools to create those digital artifacts. So you don't have to go big and crazy with this. You can start off with something really small and move up and move up and move up. And then your students are going to develop that confidence to be able to use tools like this in the classroom, their own lives and their own futures. Okay, our next one here is incorporating multimedia projects such as podcasts or short videos into our learning programs. I think this is a fantastic one. All right. I think multimedia and multimodal projects are so valuable. We live in a world now where it's highly visual. All right. We've got TikTok, we've got YouTube Shorts, we've got Instagram, we've got Reels, we've got everything. So we know that those short videos, those podcasts, it is so important, and it's such a really good way to develop our students' ability to use those digital tools, platforms, so that they can create, so that they can evaluate, and they can share information. Here I am presenting to you a workshop looking at this idea of future ready skills. And, I have graphics. I am here presenting to you. I'm looking at you in the camera. I'm talking to you. So I'm incorporating some of these multimodal elements to help you start to grasp some of these and how you can incorporate these into your own classrooms. So incorporating those multimodal projects into our teaching and learning in our classroom environments is a great way to help develop that confidence in using digital skills, tools, and platforms for our students. And our final example here is encouraging our students to collaborate online through shared documents. Absolutely. And I remember here, and I think I've talked about this one a few times here at Evolve EdTech. Oh gosh, this was 10 years ago when I had this particular group, young group of kids when they were in year 11. And we were reading Fahrenheit 451. All right, if you've ever read Fahrenheit 451, such an interesting text. And I actually got my students to create a collaborative kind of document where we were looking at the chapters, we're looking at the characters, we had different techniques, language techniques, we had examples. But we had this collaborative Google Docs document. This was very early in the Google Docs days. And I still have this particular document somewhere in my files, but it was such a powerful activity. And it was so great to see students working on this and to be able to see them engaged. So using those collaborative documents and using those shared documents is a really simple way to develop that digital literacy with our students. So why does digital literacy matter? So we know that digital technology is now embedded into nearly every single career and aspect of our daily life. It is just something that is normal in our world. So our students must be able to navigate online environments safely, critically, and confidently. We need them to be able to go out there, to be able to use those tools, those platforms, those technologies, so that they can find, create, evaluate, and share information in a way that is safe, critical, and confident. And that is what is going to help them be so successful in their worlds moving forward. All right, let's move on to cluster number 3. We are getting so close to the end of this episode. We do want to try and finish on time. So cluster number 3 are looking at those human skills. All right, so we've looked at those critical thinking skills. We've looked at those digital skills, but I don't want us to forget about those human skills, because those human skills that we really need to embed into and incorporate into our classrooms focus on how students interact with others, communicate ideas, and navigate the social aspects of digital and real world environments. So even though we have to really be critical with our thinking and what we're doing and problem solving, we need digital skills so that we are able to navigate that, vastly technologically different future and world. We still need those human skills to be successful, to be engaged, to be critical, to be active citizens. So we do need to incorporate these. We can't forget about these because they are also still important. All right. Idea number 5, digital communication. So obviously, digital communication is the ability to communicate effectively using digital platforms, media, and technology. We know that this is such an important part of our world today. We have, instant messaging, we have SMS, we have emails, we have all these different communication platforms that we are using to communicate in our day-to-day lives. So we need to incorporate these, and we need to develop our students' ability to communicate effectively using these in the classroom. And here are some practical strategies on how we can do that. So maybe we ask our students to record presentations or video reflections. I think this is fantastic, and this is something that I did at my last school. I know that a lot of students don't like public speaking. I get that public speaking is absolutely daunting. I don't just come on here and, go, oh, this is the most exciting thing in the world. I'm still nervous. I still do have that feeling, even though I have been presenting these to you for a number of years. So a few years ago at my old school, to move away from this anxiety and the angst associated with public speaking, when it came to our speeches, I actually incorporated and actually suggested that we get our students to record their speeches so that they feel safe, they feel confident, that they can start again, that they can actually have that, ability to be successful. But we're taking away some of those, some of those anxieties associated with that. So those video presentations, those recordings, those video reflections are such a great way to really incorporate that digital communication in a way. Right here, we're very visual. I'm on a webinar now, workshop with you on YouTube and Facebook. So it's pretty obvious that being able to speak to a camera, being able to project your voice is so important. And we can do that through recording a presentation or a video reflection or something like that. Okay, another idea here is encouraging blogging or digital portfolios. I think this is a great idea. Blogging is so powerful. My wonderful friend and mentor, Sarah Cordner, talks about blogging being one of the most important ways to get your ideas and information out there into the world, because your blog is going to be, accessible till the end of time. And being able to share something now and people being able to find that in 5, 10, 15 years and read that and maybe take something away from it is so powerful. Digital portfolios, being able to collect some of those artifacts and resources that you have been creating in a manner like using Wakelet or Book Creator or even something on Canva or Google Sites, any way is a really great way to start to develop that ability to share your information, your learning, your experiences through a digital portfolio. Another way here is that we might use something like a discussion forum. All right, you might be using a Padlet page, which is fantastic to be able to use that. You might have some kind of Q&A section. All right, so those discussion forums are a fantastic way for those collaborative conversations to begin in a way where our students are going to be able to do that safely from their keyboard, hopefully respectfully and responsibly, but obviously that comes down to your own routines and processes. And our final example here is that we need to teach our students, and this is a little bit ironic because I talked about this earlier, we need to teach our students how to structure professional emails and messages. And I'm going to a big shout out to one of my former colleagues, Kate Dixon, right here. I do remember during the learning from home period here in Australia during COVID that she actually created a wonderful activity for students to complete where she emailed every student in a year group at a particular point in time. And they had a kind of a checklist. They had to respond to her, and they actually had a checklist of what they needed to include to make sure that the email was professional, it was actually appropriate, and it was all clear. It was a wonderful activity. So well done, Kate. For that, she was just an outstanding head teacher, probably one of the best head teachers that I have ever worked for. So, teaching our students how to structure those emails and messages is so important in establishing and developing that ability to communicate effectively. So why does digital communication matter? So we know that communication increasingly occurs online today, all right? It is just something that happens. You might be using some kind of app, messenger. You might be using, whatever you're using, all right? Whatever you're using, I don't know. There's so many out there. My mind's blanking. But we know that communication increasingly occurs online. So our students need to learn how to express their ideas clearly, respectfully, and professionally in digital environments, all right? They can't just be writing, yo, where our class at? They need to be able to present their ideas clearly. They need to, have a wonderful opening so that they, hi, Mrs. Something, whatever. We need to teach them that. We need to make sure that they have the skills to be able to communicate clearly using digital technologies in the future. Okay, yes, we're going to go over the 60 minutes tonight because I love to talk. All right, our final example here for human skills is adaptability and lifelong learning. All right, we've alluded to this tonight. It is so important that every single thing that we do in the classroom relates back to this idea of adaptability and lifelong learning. So adaptability is the ability to respond to change, learn new skills, and remain open to new ideas. All right, so being able to take what we are already doing and to be able to learn something new and be open to having a look at something in a different way or through a different lens or a different perspective, right? I'm doing it all the time right here at Evolve EdTech. I'm doing it with other things that I'm doing each and every day. I am being adaptable, and I'm also looking at these, new skills that I'm developing, but I'm also very open to new ideas. Sometimes I don't like them because that's just human nature, but I am here prepared to see what I need to do to make sure that I can be, active and informed and successful moving forward. So some practical classroom strategies include that idea of reflective learning journals or digital portfolios. We've talked about this a little bit in the previous example. A wonderful way here. I know that this year I'm not using technology for this particular example at the moment, but I'm actually using in some of my English classes at the moment. We actually have we're doing a little bit of a journal writing activity for the first 5 or so minutes. Sometimes it might just be a personal reflection. Sometimes it might be a hypothetical. Sometimes it might be related to a creative prompt. I'm using a variety of different ways to develop this kind of reflection journal activity with some of my classes this year. Another strategy is to allow our students to revise work based on feedback. Absolutely, we should always be doing this, getting our students to have a look at the feedback that you are providing them so that they can revise their work, they can fix it up, and they can continue to improve moving forward. Another example here is to introduce new technologies gradually and allow exploration. All right. So if you joined us for the Tech Ready Teacher digital conference this year, I do remember that one of our sessions really focused on this idea of you don't have to introduce 5 new websites at the same time and get your students to use those. Start off with something small. Maybe you start off with something like Google Docs. All right. It is a great place to get started with. Introduce that, get your students to become more confident and comfortable, and then venture out and use something different. So introduce technology into your classroom gradually to allow that exploration, to allow that skill and those competencies to be developed with not only yourself, but your students. And the final practical classroom strategy for adaptability and lifelong learning is to model that growth mindset with new learning tools. So I'm going to tell you the truth here. Sometimes you might introduce a tool and it will go absolutely pear-shaped. Do you know what? That's okay. I think that is actually a really great way to show your students that you're human, that not everything always goes to plan, and that you can bounce back and you can work out what's going on, what didn't work, okay? So modeling that growth mindset and that ability to overcome a problem, to adapt, is so important when we're introducing new learning tools into our classrooms for our students. So why does adaptability and lifelong learning matter? So technology and industries are constantly evolving, and we know that when our students move out there into their world, technology and industry is going to be completely different. All right, the world is going to be completely different. But if our students are adaptable and committed to lifelong learning, they are going to be better equipped to navigate those future changes. So if they go out there and they're able to adapt to, their particular job becoming redundant, but they've gone out there and they've learned a new skill and they are able now to go and use that skill in a brand new emerging industry, they're going to be much better suited for any changes that they face in their future. So that adaptability and that lifelong learning is so important. We need to embed that into our students' mindset today so that when they go out into that world, they are going to be ready for those challenges and changes that they are going to face each and every day. All right, there we are. That is the basis of version 1 of our framework. All right. As I mentioned earlier, this is version 1. This is just an introduction to the framework. We're going to work on this a little bit more before we kind of come up and we commit to something that we are going to share with you in full. But we really want to show, and we really want you to start thinking about how you can embed some of these critical thinking, digital skills, and also some of these human skills into our classrooms so that our students are ready for the future. And that brings us beautifully to our next slide, which are our key takeaways from this session. So future-ready classrooms, they are built on these 4 ideas. So future-ready classrooms are built through curiosity, being curious, being adventurous, going out there, trying something, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, finding solutions. Being curious is one way in which future-ready classrooms are built. All right, our next way is collaboration. It is something that is just part of this world. It is part of every single thing that we do every single day. And it is going to be part of our future as well. So we really need to embed that into everything that we're doing so that our young people are ready for a future that is going to be really different. It's going to be dynamic, hopefully really exciting as well. Okay, future-ready classrooms are also built through creativity, okay? Taking something that we might have been doing in one particular way for a long time, taking a problem, taking a product, finding new and innovative ways that are creative to really enhance, embed, to make our world even better is so important as well. And it is also what future-ready classrooms are built on. And our final idea here is that future-ready classrooms are built on this idea of thoughtful use of technology. So when you're going out there as an educator ready to introduce or incorporate technology into your classroom, make sure that you have actually reflected on what the tool is. Why are you using this tool? What's the purpose of this tool? Okay, that thoughtful use of technology is really going to help build that future-ready classroom so it's engaging, sustainable, dynamic, and really future-focused. Well, there we go. We're almost at the very end here. But I just want you to remember this, all right? You are already shaping the future. Every single day in every single class, you are shaping the future. Every lesson, every idea, every opportunity that you give your students, it actually matters. All right. I know sometimes you might have a really terrible class. You might have a really bad day. But do you know what? There'll be one student in those particular classes and one of those moments who's taken something away from you. And it is going to be something that lives with them forever. Right. You might just be talking to a student. I have had many mentor students in the past, and I'm still, I'm good friends with one of these young people now. They had a lot of trouble throughout their high school, career and time. I was one of the very few people that gave them time, and I didn't do anything. I just literally listened to them. I was there for them. I was one human in their life that actually mattered and actually gave them a few moments to just to vent and to reflect. And I am part of this young person's journey now, and I am so proud to see what they're doing with their lives. So every single thing that you are doing today matters. Don't forget that, all right? Because it's sometimes teaching is hard, I know, but you do amazing things every single day in your classroom. Well, that brings us to the end. We're only a little bit over time, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 22 of Innovative EdTech, Smart Classrooms of Tomorrow, Building Future-Ready Skills Today. All right, so obviously we have introduced to you the Future-Ready Skills Framework. We're going to look at this a little bit more, and we will talk to you and share more of this over the coming months, but it is something that we are going to use here at Evolve EdTech. So it is one way for us to support you so that we can build these smart classrooms and make sure that our young people are ready for a very dynamic, very engaging, fast-paced future. All right, let's wrap up tonight's episode. If you would love to stay connected with us, we'd love to stay connected with you. You can head over to our website, evolveedtech.com. You can find all of our stuff on the website, digital template. You can find our coming workshops. You can find all kinds of things, our blogs, etc. Don't forget, we'd love it if you would like and subscribe to the Evolve EdTech YouTube channel. It's just one small way to continue to motivate us. We'd love to get to 1,000 subscribers. I think at last count, we're on 304. So we're only a small channel, but we'd love to be part of your journey. So make sure you subscribe to our channel and give this video a big thumbs up. You can also connect with us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. They're our main social channels that you can find and connect with us on. Okay, if you do want to catch up on the previous episodes of Innovative EdTech, just head over to the Evolve EdTech YouTube channel and you'll find the Innovative EdTech YouTube playlist just there. You'll be able to jump over and check all of our previous episodes out just there. If you are looking for a little bit more professional learning, we do have a free digital conference, and it was our second digital conference in January of this year. So if you would like to go over and check out the 15 sessions from the previous 2 conferences, you can head over to the techreadyteacher.com and register for that today. It is 100% free. Go and check out those sessions. There is about 15 hours worth of video recordings that you can access at any time to help you with your EdTech adventures. If you're looking for a little bit more, we'd love it if you would think about coming and joining the Tech Ready Teacher Academy. So this is our membership academy here at Evolve EdTech. It is your ultimate resource of everything that we do here. All right, this is where you'll be able to access exclusive monthly masterclasses. You'll be able to access ad-free recordings of our Innovative EdTech episodes. So if you don't have YouTube Premium and you don't like the ads, you'll be able to watch these ad-free in our academy. You'll be able to access all of our digital templates in a customizable form, and a whole heap of other resources will be available on that. If you'd like to know more about our academy, just head over to evolveedtech.com/academy, and you can come and join us at the Tech Ready Teacher Academy. We do have a whole heap of free resources and training, which you can also access if you would like to check that out. Just head over to evolveedtech.com/free stuff. And that brings us to the end. We are only 11 minutes over time, which I think is a pretty good effort considering how tired I was at the beginning of this episode. So thank you for joining us for tonight's episode. It has been wonderful to see you. We will be back again in April with OneNote 101. Gee, that's a hard title to say. OneNote 101, getting started with digital notebooks. So if you're brand new or you have never seen OneNote, we're going to take you through setting up a OneNote digital notebook, getting you started with this fantastic tool from Microsoft. So you can join me on April 13th from 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is based on Melbourne, Australia. So just head over to YouTube if you'd like to just give yourself a little reminder about that. And we'll catch you again in April for episode 23 of Innovative EdTech. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to the Evolve EdTech YouTube channel. My name is Tristan Heron. I am the Future Ready Teaching Specialist here at Evolve EdTech. It has been wonderful to see you again. Until next time, everybody, stay safe.